As a sexual abuse trial lawyer and crisis response manager, I stand over a lot of train wrecks, a lot of ditch-like experiences where organizations have found themselves dealing with a sexual abuse crisis. Now, when I get to stand over that train wreck, what I oftentimes do for organizations is to help them deconstruct and then reconstruct their circumstance to help them better understand, how did we get here? Now, that's valuable for organizations as well, to have the opportunity to learn from someone else's ditch-like experience, to be able to help others deconstruct and reconstruct the circumstance so that we can learn from the mistakes of others. And I want to take the opportunity to learn mistakes from a number of Christian schools and a couple of public schools that find themselves into ditch-like experiences. So I want to focus on decision-making, actually. So we have a number of schools, ironically and interestingly, because a lot of times my schools are doing this well. But right now we're focusing on a couple of schools in Midland, Texas, one in San Jose, and another one in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. All right, so we have Midland Christian School, Trinity School of Midland, Dartmouth Middle School, and Trinity Christian Academy. Now, in this opportunity to learn from somebody's ditch-like experience, I want to focus on the first two first. Okay? And in both of these circumstances, we had some unfortunate headlines. I'm going to give you a little bit of the facts, but the facts aren't as important as understanding how we got into those ditches. So follow me on this one. Let's start in Midland, for example. We made some headlines, and sadly, the headlines involve the fact that 5 employees, administrative employees, heads of school, head baseball coach, athletic director, leadership at the school were arrested and charged in Midland, Texas for failure to report with an intent to conceal. Now, interestingly, in Texas, failure to report generally is a misdemeanor offense. Failure to report with intent to conceal, if proven, is a felony. Now, when this arrest affidavit came down, here are some of the sections we can pull from this, just to give you an idea of what the criminal authorities saw and what their perception was, is that these administrators and teachers at Midland Christian School are required by Texas law to report the incident to the authorities, that incident in question. Instead of reporting the incident, they've continually attempted to conceal the incident of abuse from authorities, and they conducted their own investigation. They had knowledge of the sexual assault. Now, it's important, this is kind of the language you're going to see when law enforcement concludes that there was a reporting requirement, somebody failed to follow that reporting requirement, and now they're assigning an intent, a motive in doing that, and that led to the arrest and charging of those 5 school leaders. Now, 9 days later, at Trinity School of Midland, in the same community, 4 employees were arrested and also charged with failure to report with intent to conceal. And this was on an entirely separate matter. Okay, so in 9 days, we have leadership at 2 particular schools that were both arrested and charged with felonies, if those are proven. Okay, so part of the question here is, what were some of the ramifications? Okay, we saw some of them by virtue of those headlines, but it's important to zoom out a little bit and see that it goes far beyond the headline and the mugshots of the people that used to be sitting in positions of leadership. You see, a child was injured. That's what got this whole drama started in both situations. But see, the failure to report compounded the injury to the child. Now, we could go a little bit deeper into that analysis, but I want to leave that alone for now. The reputation of the schools in Christian education, of course, was seriously tarnished. We now have criminal prosecutions, and these are felony charges, which are not covered by insurance coverage. And I suspect that the careers of all 9 of those people are going to be significantly and negatively impacted. Now, I want us to ask the question, for what reason? You see, what went wrong? That's what I want to deconstruct first. Because the quick answer is, well, they didn't report to the authorities. No. Let's not stop there. There's something deeper here I don't want us to miss. Because in my opinion, all of us are standing right at the edge of this same ditch. And with a right set of circumstances or facts, we could easily get into this ditch and join them in this circumstance. So, why else did this go wrong? Are they idiots? Are they stupid? It's like, no. See, these are very well-educated people, very well-respected in their communities, also connected to a lot of folks who are making decisions that impacted the lives of young people, but they're not idiots. Okay, so when we reconstruct this, getting down deep enough to understand what is the root of the problem, it's not as simple as somebody failed to pick up the phone or that somebody wasn't that bright. Getting to the bottom of this, you see, in the work that we do, we're standing over train wrecks every day. And having done this type of work for the better part of 32 years, I've been in a lot of ditches with folks. And they're also very, very bright folks that are making very, very poor decisions. So that's where I want us to start, because the deeper magic in this and understanding, how did we get off the rails and into this ditch? A lot of times it relates to the decision-making framework. Okay? Let me explain to you what I mean by that. When I talk about a decision-making framework, you have two alternatives. Actually, there's 3 or 4, but I want to focus on distinguishing 2. You can have an organization-centered thinking, or you can have victim-centered thinking. These are different. You don't blend these types of decision-making frameworks. So what I want to do is contrast these, but I want to focus on the organization-centered decision-making first. And the reason why I want to focus here first is because I want us to connect with these leaders of these 2 Christian schools right now, knowing that we are very similar in the way we are wired and the way we respond to difficulties that arise. All right? So an organization-centered decision-making actually is the well-practiced default way we make decisions in our organizations. Okay? This is the default. This is the way we are naturally and well-practiced in making decision-making in our child-serving organizations. We recognize that the importance of the reputation of this organization is important. Public image is important. Our brand is important. That is especially true for those entities that serve children. Churches, camps, schools, nonprofits, mentoring programs, after-school programs. If it's child serving, it's very important that that organization have a positive reputation, that it can be seen in the community as having embodied this brand or this image of being trustworthy, of being safe, of being someone who understands the child, knows how to come alongside the child. So this idea of brand or public image is very important. And see, the natural decision-making process is when there's something that comes about that could lead somebody to have a negative opinion, possibly post something, possibly tweet something. It's very important for us that we see what the problems are, that we be sensitive to those things that we need to know so that we can quickly resolve them, so as to keep that public image one that our present served families can recognize that we are trustworthy, healthy, caregiving, but also those people out in the community would have that same impression. See, we want to continue to convince the families that are trusting us that they should continue to trust us. But see, those families out there in the marketplace, those are the people that we want to continue to have them see us in a certain way because they are potentially prospective families, or they're people that may support us through charitable giving, donations, seeing us as valuable and people that enrich the lives of children and something worthy of their support and their endorsement. So our natural way as child-serving organizations, churches, schools, camps, nonprofits is we have to keep this image that we are a safe place, we're a healthy place, and we're a place worthy of your trust. Okay? Now let's focus a little bit about the leadership of these organizations. Because see, these people are not idiots. These people are often very bright, well-educated. These people are committed to the organization. They're committed to the mission. They're committed to enriching the lives of children, and that most people in the roles of enriching the lives of children generally are not doing it for the money. They're often very skilled people willing to pour their lives out for something that they believe in. So you've got people that are committed, but see, their decision-making is still focused on keeping this place as the healthiest, the safest, a reputation in the community that would lead you to believe, trust your child with us. Okay? Now, there's a faulty thinking here that I don't want us to miss. Okay? Here's the faulty belief. Children are blessed when our reputation is protected. Okay? Children get our best. They are enriched the most when our reputation is preserved. See, there's a relationship between reputation and serving children. At least that's the belief. So this is paramount. That reputation, our image, our brand must be preserved, or we will not be able to continue to do all these good things for these children that we're pouring our lives out for. Okay? Now, there is a relationship between image and child service, but when it comes to certain types of crises, this type of relationship flips. Okay? So I just want you to know, this is the well-practiced, the default way in which organizations are making decisions with respect to those things that might impact the reputation, the public image, or the brand. Now, this decision-making can go way wrong when the matter involves child safety. So if you have a matter that involves abuse, neglect, peer-to-peer sexual abuse, if you have a situation that involves abuse that's several years old, we call those historical allegations. Any one of these, when you try to put an issue like this into the organization-centered decision-making framework, that's when it fails. That's when you get a circumstance similar to those schools out in West Texas. So what I want to do is not just tell you that it can go wrong. Let me just give you an example. And it's not far off of the examples of one of these particular schools. So we have two kids in an athletic program. We have an older kid and a younger kid. And the older kid decides, it's time for an initiation. We're going to get the kid in the locker room. And there's going to be a lot of horseplay, a lot of roughhousing, and then ultimately somebody uses an instrument that is related to sexual assault of that younger child. Now, in that circumstance, you already have one step right in front of you as a way in which we can make a mistake. See, for a lot of my schools, when you have a peer-to-peer bad behavior, which most of the bad behavior in churches, schools, and camps is going to be peer-to-peer, if I have that information that's actually communicated to somebody in leadership, and they simply view that problem as if it's just bullying, okay, it's just kids being kids. It's just horseplay. It's roughhousing. It's like, okay, you guys, stop doing that. There's going to be some scolding. There's going to be some people running laps, okay? If it's viewed through a lens of being something other than peer-to-peer sexual abuse, it oftentimes will fail right there, which starts to get you into the ditch, okay? So the report never gets made up to leadership to even have the chance of doing the next right thing. Okay, but for other organizations, clearly we have a peer-to-peer situation that involves sexual assault, okay, which means you have an imbalance of power. You have an aggressor child and a child who did not expect, or look for that type of interaction. So you have a peer-to-peer sexual abuse situation, and let's say it does get reported up to leadership. So now leadership of this organization knows I have a peer-to-peer sexual abuse situation which is reportable to the authorities. Because the well-practiced default method of trying to handle an issue that might impact their reputation is organization-centered, watch what happens next. See, in this situation, it gets to leadership. Leadership thinks, if this gets out, there's some people that are going to talk about this. This is going to have people forming opinions about us. This could be negative. As a result, what do? You get a wagon start to be circling, and you have people starting to ask these types of questions. Well, how many people know about this already? How many people need to know? What can we do to make this go away? What's the quickest trip to get us back to where this can't possibly become public and threaten our reputation or our public image? What will it take to placate this child or the child's parents? What will it take to keep them from speaking out or posting online? Or, I got it. Let's do an internal investigation, making sure that we're choosing our own people who, like us, are invested in the brand, invested in the reputation and our public image. Let's try to keep this toothpaste in the tube and see what we can learn Even if it does get to the point where someone realizes this is problematic, we need to call a lawyer. Oftentimes the call to the lawyer is, how do we move forward that keeps this information contained? How do we keep this from becoming public? Because we are convinced that if it becomes public, our reputation will be impacted. And again, if our reputation is impacted, children won't get the type of services that we provide. All right? Those are the types of questions. Once you start asking these questions, you see, we're way before someone's made a report to the authorities. So the answer as to how we got into this ditch wasn't they simply didn't pick up the phone. You see, the topic, the crisis, the issue got dropped into a decision-making paradigm that was set to fail because this type of issue doesn't fall into this paradigm and come out correctly. All right? So the outcome when you take a child abuse, a risk to a child type of issue, and put it into an organization-centric decision-making paradigm, impact on the victim. Victim was already impacted. Now the victim impact is compounded. Now you have potential criminal charges, possibly, as in the cases we've seen, felony charges. You also have the perception of cover-up, not only of the families within the program, but those families outside the program that are our potential prospective families. You also place your insurance coverage at risk because if you didn't notify the authorities, certainly you didn't follow the instructions from your carrier to notify them if you have facts that could give rise to a claim. All in all, in this effort to preserve reputation, you've not only not preserved the reputation, but you've trashed the reputation to a far deeper degree than anything you would have been preserving. Okay? So when you take a child abuse issue and try to handle it using an organization-centered framework, the consequences are significant. So this is the way it works. This is what we see in my office all the time. We just get the opportunity to take two particular schools, put them up in front of you and be able to show you what this is extraordinary to them, but it's not extraordinary to us because we see it all the time. And I want you to know this is what we're seeing our churches, camps, and nonprofits experience daily. Now, not all of them are involving felony charges, but we're just seeing this over and over and over. So the point at this juncture is we all are standing on the edge of this ditch. All of my churches, camps, and schools. This is the default way we do decision making when it comes to something that might have us have a reputation that's threatened or might be impacted in our community. This will fail us. Okay? So what I want to do is contrast that. In other words, I don't want to just tell you that's what the ditch looks like, have a nice day. I want us to see this is what organization-centric decision making is, the pathway and the outcome. How are we supposed to do it differently? What is the alternative? Because you see, in this situation, there's no Switzerland. There's no way to blend these. You either are going to go this way in organization-centric decision-making or this way, which is victim-centric decision-making. And this one is not the default. This one is not the well-practiced way in which we do decision-making. This is something that we have to stop and intentionally learn it. So that since we have the opportunity to deconstruct and reconstruct, let me reconstruct this fact pattern using a victim-centric decision-making paradigm and allow you to have two contrasts to see, yes, I see how the ditch works, and I see how close to that ditch or how available it is to me. This I can now see is the correct way to do it. Now I can start pursuing how do I get to a place where this becomes my default on matters involving child safety. Okay, so what is, to begin with, a victim-centric decision-making paradigm? Okay, when a decision-making framework is victim-centered, the decision-making framework prioritizes the child. It prioritizes the victim, even if the decision threatens the reputation or image. Now, I want you to threatens the reputation or image. You see, it's like my default is to keep the toothpaste in the tube, but I think I'm supposed to let this toothpaste out of the tube. But what about my reputation? Follow me on the reconstruction, because what I want to show you is what feels as if it's going to be negative and it's going to tarnish and it's going to threaten actually is going to strengthen and make more healthy. Reconstruct with me, okay? Because on the decision-making paradigm, which is victim-centric, you see, immediately there's a report to the authorities. Immediately we offer a model of care to that child victim. If it's a historical allegation, we come alongside that survivor or that person that's an adult. Once again, it's the immediate offer to create a model of care. In other words, clearly this impacted you negatively. What can we do to be able to get you on a pathway to health? Is it counseling? Do you need someone to talk to? It doesn't need to be our counselor. Let us set you up with someone of your choice to be able to start understanding the impact of what you've experienced. It's reaching out to the families in such a way that the child is the priority. The health of the child is the priority. You may also, depending on the facts, need to notify parents in your particular organization. Take that fact pattern that we're dealing with, the hypothetical. We had bad behavior from one older student to another and a sexual nature related to an athletic team. Okay, it may be appropriate to be able to communicate to the other families that may have been in that same program or children of the same age group to be able to say, we've had some bad behavior by a young man in the athletics program. If any of your young men or any of your children were negatively impacted, we certainly want to know. And it may be one of those things that if you feel comfortable, here's the detective that's investigating this matter, please contact them right away. So it's essentially recognizing that you have other parents that may have children that were negatively impacted. See, they are the primary protectors and caregivers of their children. And see, if leadership knows something that led one child into harm's way, and there were other particular potential children that were similarly situated, it's appropriate to share with those parents and let them go talk to their children to find out, is this problem bigger than just this one child? And it gives them the opportunity to communicate with you, get health and help for their children. But see, it also creates this issue or this perception of transparency. And that's where we need to lean. We need to open up and let people know there was a problem. And it's a problem that may not have just rippled once. It may have rippled out and we think it might have impacted your child. Please check with your child. We want you to know if there's something that might have hurt your child. And then if you do need to contact us, let us lean you back into that model of care. So it's this communication goes out. Now, that seems counterintuitive. It's like, look, I need to protect our reputation and our brand, yet you want me to communicate this negative information. Yes, that's what a victim-centered decision-making paradigm looks like. But let's keep reconstructing because we get to compare and actually contrast the outcomes. When we had a organization-centered decision-making framework, remember, we had arrests. We had victims being compounded in their injury. We have insurance coverage being rejected. We have all kinds of reputation being trashed far more significantly than they would have anticipated. In fact, neither one of these two schools yet even know how deep and wide this ditch is going to be or how long it's going to last. But when we do it in a victim-centered way, what we see is that children are served. And actually, and not surprisingly, that's consistent with the mission of the organization. Its whole purpose is to enrich the lives of children. Victim-centered decision-making allows you to pursue that mission, whereas an organization-centered decision-making on abuse matters does not. You create the perception of transparency rather than cover-up. Okay? Everything related to cover-up is a very difficult reputation to shake, especially if, by evaluating the facts, it appears that that's exactly what you were doing. Now, let's get back into reputation, because I told you that the whole goal is we need to protect this reputation, this public image, and if we share information, aren't we doing the things that are going to threaten the very thing I want to protect? Like, actually, when it comes to child safety issues, reputation is oftentimes strengthened by information coming out. You see, you've communicated to people in such a way that says, hey, our reputation, our brand, our public image is not as important as the well-being of your child. We don't want to keep information that allows us to protect our children but not yours It's worth it for us to let this information come out, to let you know we care more about children than we do about public perception. We want to develop a trust with you that if there is anything that comes out that might impact your child and may impact yours, and your child, we'd rather you know that than not know it. We're going to default to giving that information rather than you ever wondering whether we're going to keep information from you. Because we're seeing so many parents watch the news just like you do. And they have organizations that they see are being accused of cover-up, and oftentimes they are. But to be able to contrast your organization with what the community is seeing the default become creates trust with those folks that are your stakeholders and those people that may become your stakeholders. So comparing the reconstructed outcomes of the organization-centered decision-making and the child-centered decision-making is very, very different. This is the direction to go. Not only is this the direction to go, this is the law. This is what your legislation requires you to do. So when I ask and answer the question, okay, I need you to have a victim-centered decision-making paradigm, but how do I do that? Okay, you've just reconstructed that for me, but how do I go about getting to this place? Because the other one is so default, it's so well practiced. So when I answer the question, how is this done? I would tell you it starts with training. You need to better understand this risk. See, child sexual abuse, peer-to-peer sexual abuse is not the same type of risk as if you have a leak in the foundation or there's a situation that overflowed in the sewage system. This is the type of decision-making paradigm that's necessary if you have an abuse allegation. If it's injury to a child, we just need to understand this is what decision-making framework I use. But see, a lot of people still don't understand, I didn't know I had a child abuse issue. Remember back in my locker room, if I had that coach or athletic director that receives the report about the peer-to-peer behavior, but handled it as if it were just bullying, or somebody just needs to run some laps, we failed because we didn't understand the risk. All right. So I tell you that the first step, the foundational piece to creating a victim-centered decision-making process is understand the risk. Get the training to understand sexual abuse, peer-to-peer sexual abuse. Now, with that understanding of what is abuse, so in other words, now I recognize it when it comes to me, we're going to need to reorient our decision-making process if you're dealing with one of those kinds of issues. Think through it in advance. Take the opportunity to do that when you're not in a crisis. Take this particular training, take this fact pattern back to a committee of leadership and just walk through it step by step. Pretend this is your situation. Find out who's on board with you. Find out who has an objection to it so you can get through those objections when it's not a situation you're dealing with in real time. We've got to create our abuse communication plan, all right, internally and externally, meaning we need to have clear lines of communication that if somebody does receive information that relates to peer-to-peer sexual abuse, a historical allegation, that they know exactly where that information needs to come so it can be communicated externally and so that we can do the other things necessary in line with a victim-centered decision-making paradigm, like creating a model of care. So communication plans are incredibly important. And then oftentimes take circumstances and practice it. It's like doing a fire drill. Do a sexual abuse communication drill so that people can understand exactly what needs to be communicated to whom, when, and in what form. And in addition to that, I would tell you, know your state's reporting requirements. In summary, it's just important that we take the opportunity to stare into this ditch and not just point fingers and think this would never happen to us. We need to learn from this opportunity because I think lots of organizations are lined up next to that ditch, just waiting for the right type of situation to be entered into their decision-making process and then join those two Christian schools. So think through this, get the information you need to understand the risk, reorient your decision-making process, and make sure that child abuse and neglect always get handled in a victim-centric way.